Hi, good afternoon. My name is Karen Mena, and today I'm going to be going over the President's cabinet, that's President Obama's cabinet. And we're also going to be discussing some of the names that are being considered for President-elect Trump to be in his cabinet. Once we have gone through those, we will also go into a comparison between the cabinet as it compares to the general civil service. The cabinet includes the vice president along with the heads of 15 executive departments, and they are as follows. Our vice president, of course, is Joe Biden. Then we have the Department of State, which is led out by the Secretary John Kerry. The Department of the Treasury is led out by Secretary Jack Lew. Our Department of Defense, Secretary Ashton Carter. The Department of Justice is led out by Attorney General Loretta Lynch. The Department of the Interior is led out by Secretary Sally Jewell. The Department of Agriculture, Secretary Thomas Vilsack. Department of Commerce, we have Secretary Penny Pritzker. The Department of Labor is led out by Secretary Thomas Perez. And then we have our Department of Health and Human Services, led out by Secretary Sylvia Matthews Burwell. Then we have the Department of Housing and Urban Development by Secretary Julian Castro. Department of Transportation is headed out by Secretary Anthony Fox. Department of Energy, Secretary Ernest Muniz. Department of Education, Secretary John King. Department of Veterans Affairs is Secretary Robert McDonald. And finally, the Department of Homeland Security by Secretary Jay Johnson. With a new administration also comes the selection of a new cabinet. And with our recent elections and the election of our President-elect Donald Trump, the talks of who will be selected for his cabinet began immediately. And some of the names that have been suggested or that he has recommended have been controversial. I will go over just a few of the names that I was able to find and some that I heard on the radio. The first one I'm going to mention is his expected nomination of Rick Perry for the Department of Energy. Now, what's interesting about Rick Perry is that during the 2011 presidential debate, he is noted for famously listing three government agencies that he said he would do away with, one of which included the Department of Energy, which is the very department that he's considering to head now. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Then we have Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt, whom Trump has selected to head the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Now, the controversy or the disagreement with this selection is that Pruitt is not necessarily for climate change. He's kind of a skeptic, so it'll be interesting to see how leading out the EPA is going to work out with that. Of course, Ben Carson, who himself was also running for president in this election, is Trump's pick for the Department of Housing and Urban Development. He's a renowned neurosurgeon who really doesn't have any experience in the housing policy, and he himself has said that he doesn't feel that he's experienced. Interesting part is that he's not experienced to head the Department of Housing and Urban Development, but somehow he was qualified to lead the country. But, you know, it is what it is. At last, to head out the Department of Labor, Andy Pooster, and I'm not really sure if I'm butchering his name, but he has been a potential to lead the Department of Labor. Now, with this individual, I know that there's been some talk about him wanting to replace workers with technology. So that'll be interesting. And also, he's had companies that have been cited for worker violations. So it's kind of interesting that he's actually being the one selected to lead out the Labor Department. Now, doing a compare and contrast with the cabinet to the general civil service, let's begin just with its size. The cabinet, as we went over, consists of 16 members, which is the vice president and the heads of 15 departments. You have those individuals that are leading out in their departments, setting the agenda, defending it before Congress, doing all those things. But on the other side of that, with the civil service, that's like the bulk of your government personnel. You're talking nurses, doctors, uh, police, fire, teachers, even myself working for the Department of Health. So you have a bigger group of individuals, but it doesn't mean that that neither one of them have influence or they lose influence. They have influence in their own way. Now, with civil services, you operate under the merit concept, where for your cabinet, they serve without tenure. I mean, they're mostly serving based on their political ties and their party loyalties. They're selected. But when you're a civil service, you're under the merit system. The U.S. Civil Service largely represents the population. With the cabinet, the individuals, for the most part, are going to be white, urban, middle age, men with advanced Ivy League education. So with the civil service, you have more of a representation of the social status and the age and the geographical background of the individuals that they're serving. Unlike the cabinet, members are retained by the Hatch Act, which what that means is that they're not able to, or we're not able to go public with our political views. Obviously, with the cabinet, that's what they do. To do a comparison, like I mentioned already, they each have an influence on public policy process. Now, civil service has influences through social networks that they've established. The cabinet, they have a priority to present the issues that are important to the president. Whatever the president is pressing, that's what they will represent. That's what they will present policies for. Go before Congress and media and special interest groups. They're going to do all those things in order to promote whatever the president's agenda is. And again, like I said, they each play a part in that influence. And from reading the chapter, it's showing how it's not just one group of individuals, but there are different groups, five, as mentioned in the chapter, and they each have a role in influencing how the public policy process functions.